Hey, responding to Craft Kevin regarding Ebonics 101, a topic that I've become interested in lately. Stumbled upon the video and I agree with everything that Kevin said concerning the legitimacy of Ebonics. Right now I'm studying Ebonics for my English capstone thesis, and my approach to the problem that Kevin touched on, that stereotype that Ebonics is somehow improper grammar or a misuse of English language, or as you can note from the numerous comments from various people that speakers of Ebonics are not actually speaking proper English, and they need to learn how to do so because this is America. So all of those claims about Ebonics being in some way deficient are wrong. But the reason that they're so prevalent is because the people we turn to and consider experts on English grammar actually don't understand what the term grammar actually means from a linguistic standpoint, the science of language. So when linguists use the term grammar, they're not talking about the type of grammar your seventh grade teacher was trying to beat into your head about how you ought to speak, what they call prescriptive grammar. When linguists use grammar, they're referring to the rules that every single natural language, every single language or dialect spoken by a community of humans will abide by grammatical rules systematically, not necessarily the same ones, but rules nonetheless that determine how speakers can use words in different orders to convey meanings in a way that they can understand each other. That's the entire function of language. There's no other goal that language serves other than communication of one idea from a speaker to the listener's head. Just effective communication. That's all that language is supposed to do. So the notion that there is somehow a true and proper, correct English grammar is pushed by the school-marmy types of grammar teachers who just for some reason act as if their entire lives are devoted to this topic of enforcing the grammar laws of English for the betterment of humanity. They're wrong, and it is a little bit harmful. People who don't naturally speak standard American English, for instance, native speakers of Ebonics, they're told that their use of the English language is wrong, that it's improper, and that it is somehow deficient. The claims can vary in terms of that it's a failure of their ability to think critically, to express themselves, that it's illogical because of double negations, mispronunciation is another big complaint. Language does not dictate what a speaker can conceive of or think about or how they view the world. The speakers of a dialect or language will bend that dialect or language to fit whatever role they need it to fit so that it can effectively communicate all of the concepts and critical thinking skills that they need. Languages evolve over time. They always have, they always will. Spoken languages, written languages tend to move a bit slower. Now the issue of double negation in English is a pretty popular one. It's a really common grammatical rule in many English variants. Many English dialects use it all across the world, not just in America. And not only that, but many other languages like Spanish use the double negation and suffer no worries about logical two negatives making a positive. The negation is not mathematical, it's grammatical. So it's just as if when you have to have agreement between tenses, for instance, like if you have a past tense, that past tense will be maintained for that sentence. The negation acts the same way. You're negating the entire sentence at multiple points, and those points at which you're reinforcing the negation are in agreement with each other. They're not multiplying against each other. When the English language was in its childhood, its early development, and pronunciation, really popular complaint about Ebonics is the stereotypical pronunciation of ask, A-S-K, as aks, A-K-S, phonetically. In fact, the original pronunciation of the verb to ask, as I pronounce it in my dialect, was pronounced aks, back in the old English days when they had all kinds of crazy conventions going on that the French utterly destroyed when they invaded the island. So if you are a native speaker of Ebonics and you're called out on that, if that's how you pronounce the verb, you're completely justified in pronouncing it that way. It's not that it's easier to pronounce it that way. It's not that which is of course a sneaky way of implying that that the speakers are lazy, which is another common stereotype. That's not true. It's just a convention that is random. It's random that I pronounce it ask instead of ax. It's not easier one way or the other, and both pop up frequently throughout the history of English language, so they're both supported historically. Neither is right, neither is wrong. We have similar, it's called metathesis, when you reverse the consonant clusters. We have the same thing for my dialect when I pronounce comfortable. I don't pronounce it comfortable, I simplify that cluster and just say comfortable. It's the exact same thing going on, where those consonants, they just get flipped around real quick, and what do you know? Nobody has any trouble understanding me, because that's how dialects are. Yeah, it's completely fine, and if anyone gives you shit about it, they're wrong. So if you want to get in an argument, bust out the evidence, get out the linguistics books, history of the English language. I can guarantee you that there will be a form of the verb to ask, as I pronounce it, rendered as to ax phonetically way back in the day. So you'll win that one. We have prescriptive grammarians who don't know what grammar refers to in the science of linguistics, and who are trying to tell people how they should speak, how they should convey their ideas to the rest of humanity. If you really think about it, it's obviously wrong. It's obviously just not something that you can justify, because as you were saying in your video, this is the environment you were raised in. This is the type of language use that you adopted when you were a child, and your language acquisition was working. The type of language you learned, and other speakers of Ebonics, they didn't learn a faulty language. They didn't learn improper grammar. They didn't learn a bastardized form of English. They just happened to learn one that, unfortunately, gets a lot of shit from people who don't know what they're talking about, but who can shout their claims really loudly. So they convince a lot of people, and they end up just keeping the stereotype going.